to another episode that we have going on here. Today we have joining us today is Timberwolf,
How's it going, guys?
and then also one of our submitted videos here we have BGolightly.
Hello.
So looking at it, you're running the new T6 Morrigu ship, correct?
That's right, the fleet one now.
Okay, cool. And you're using cannons on this setup, so cannons with turrets in the back.
Right, that's I've found that that's just the most fun way to play the Mogai and now the Morrigu.
You know, I can't blame you for that. There's a lot of good and fun things to do with that ship as a whole in any situation here. So, for those of you that's on the Twitch, what's going to happen is we're going to go through the review here, and then after the review, once we get done with that, we'll break off. I'll stop and start the stream real quick, to, at least for the YouTube anyways, and we'll do a recording / review of the Quantum Science Dreadnought, so that is to come. We'll kind of go over our views of it and our opinions of it, but at this point in time we're going over a dual, well, it's not actually a dual heavy cannon because you guys got a couple regular cannons in there, well, dual cannons, but we got a dual cannon build with the quad cannons, if I remember right, correct?
Right, added those because they look cool.
Yeah, can't blame you there. They are one of the nice fun things about this. So what is your goals? What are you trying to do and accomplish on this build here?
It really winds up kind of being a multi-role ship because I wind up I may have to switch on plus threat consoles and tank for fleet mates. I may wind up just kind of running around and doing support, doing a little bit of crowd control with Gravwell, doing debuffing with like sensor scan, off healing with hazard emitters or Octosif when I have that off cooldown for other people in the run if I'm not running for aggro.
Okay, yeah, and one of the things you probably could do is throw in a hazard emitter and then combine that with the overrides subsystems. That way you can really get some good healing going on there, and that'll probably be just fine as well.
Right, and having OSS means that anything I try to do with it, it can do potentially really well.
Indeed, especially as a Romulan, where the biggest problem that you have is the power levels and keeping those up. So let's go ahead and get this video started here. We'll go through from there. You know, it looks like you're using the cloak and decloak feature, which is one of the things I was going to say you have to be using.
Yeah, I use that usually at the beginning of a run, and I tend to be lackadaisical about using it subsequently.
Yeah, and really when it comes down to it, it's just the one time is all that you really have to do on it, honestly. The biggest problem with any ship is keeping enemies in the arc of what you're going at, and also maneuverability, but you know, you do what you can with it, do heavy cannons because it's got such a small, fine arc.
Right, and I know that I spend a fair amount of time without targets in my primary arc, but I think that's just, you know, life with cannons, really.
It really is, and it's one of the things. I mean, even the dual cannons, with them not being the dual heavy, you still have a 45-degree arc, if I remember right.
Right, they have the same arc. They sacrifice the 10% crit D, but they use a little bit less power, and because they have a longer firing cycle, I think they're capable of overcapping a little more.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, overall, I mean, you got the right positions. I mean, you're getting your space flanking on everything that's going on there. And one of the things you probably could have done is you probably could use your override, your OSS in combination of the gravity well, and so you use it first, and then you use the gravity well, and that will make your gravity well do that much more damage and have that much more pull as well.
I normally try to. I know that that's something that I tend to. I'll not infrequently misfire that. I'll also. I think I'm sometimes too conservative with using OSS because I'll wait until I'm about to drop Gravwell to use it.
Yeah. See, for myself, I use it all the time, and with cannons, you'll get that much more damage. Just out of curiosity, what core are you using right now? Are you using the Iconian?
Yeah, I have the Iconian core upgraded to get amp.
Okay, so one of the things you might be able to do with that, since you're not using like the Fleet Mind core, is you might actually get better benefit of using some of your singularity abilities from time to time.
Okay, I know that's something else I tend to be lackadaisical about using. I'll use
I
quantum
think most
absorption,
people are.
but yeah, they're kind of hard to work in, and the overload feels like it's not that useful because it locks out my cannon abilities. And then plasma shockwave just seems kind of derpy. The jump is something I could probably make better use of.
So you got the jump, and then there's also oh, what's it called? There's the
Warp shadow decoys.
warp shadow decoys. That would be your ultimate thing, especially if you like. There was one point that you got it down a little bit, so that's one of the things that you might use your decoys at that point to help take the threat off of you at that time, so that you can heal up and get yourself back up to full.
Right. I guess I haven't thought much about using those because if I remember right, they dump threat entirely, and you have to start all over again if you've been trying to hold threat off of anybody else.
Yeah, if you're trying to hold threat, yeah, that's one thing. But if you're not going for threat, then that's one thing that you want to be using religiously as a Romulan, trying to do the DPS, because you don't want the threat in that case.
Okay.
So that's one of the things you can use along with the jump. The jump will be pretty good here. So, and for everyone that's just joined, once again, this is a video that's been recorded for the pilot review show. He's running a dual cannon setup with a dual heavy cannon and quad cannon setup. So he's kind of got a low focus area of what he can actually shoot and keep in range, and because of how low the radius is, he can't really keep both the gateway and the tack cube in the same radius for cannon spread volley. So that's one of the reasons why he's focusing only on the gateway, because you have to do that.
That, and I mean, occasionally you'll wind up with the cube pulling in close enough that you can get both, but even when you can, one of them is usually far enough away that your cannons are doing crap damage anyway.
Yes. I mean, cannons have the largest drop-off rate, and it's insanely stupid how quick that drops off.
It really is brutal. I think they max out at what, 2 kilometers, and then I think by about 5, just tooltip damage on beam banks is superior at 5 clicks.
Yep, that's right.
So I have a narrow arc that's actually only at maximum effectiveness at this very short little distance in front of me. So it's actually kind of challenging to keep that tiny little wedge of space on something I want to kill.
So he got a little late in that rock and roll there.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it does all the time. But that's one of the things, like when is learning the timing. Sometimes you do it right at the same time or right before that explosion occurs, and it will get you far enough away where you won't get that explosion, because that explosion at the end that it does, if you're too close to it, your timer for how long you're getting counted on for your DPS actually keeps going at that point.
Oh, really?
Yes. So if you're getting hit by that second shock, then your counter is still going on for a couple seconds after that. So you want to make sure that you're getting out of range. That's why if you watch like a lot of my videos, you'll see me using like evasive maneuvers, and I'll pull myself out away from it far enough, especially if I can avoid that major shock in time. And it's just because of that factor that it keeps counting the time for me.
Okay, so it's effectively reducing my reported DPS just by virtue of counting me in combat longer.
Yep. So because you're so taking damage, and it goes based upon like the damage you're taking or giving.
Right.
So, and yeah, this comes from Twitch. Cannons. It would be nice if cannons would keep their punch further out and be better than beams, but unfortunately, it's not the way the game coded out stuff like that. one of those things that they did ages ago to um, nerf cannons because they were super powerful.
Oh, that was added in at some point. I thought that was always a feature.
Ah. It used to be that cannons were so powerful that so many people complained about it because it was you pretty much go into dual heavy cannons and you can obliterate, and no one could do anything because there was so much damage that you did at one point. So, so we got your build up right now. Let's take a look at it. We've got crit Ds with pin. Obviously the quad cannons, which have damage times 4, if I recall right, and then a crit X.
Right. Damage X4, crit X, and then of course ag damage because I've gilded like everything because I'm an idiot.
You know, that's one of those things that happens. I actually have everything on mine up to gold levels because of the factor that I like to have it all uniform for the most part. I mean, overall, I mean this build is very solid. It looks like you are using the heavy biomolecular disruptor.
Yeah, I've noticed because I've been running cannons on this thing for a long time, and the heavy turret has consistently out DPS'd standard turrets.
Yes, it does because it's got a lot more damage as a whole from that. So that's one of the things about that. So you're using the blade of shell or blade of hazard shielding and the sustained radiant field consoles.
Yeah, I was using the Kobali console for a long time. I switched in I think in fact in that run I think I was using the Kobali console. The build I have on STO Academy has been updated a little bit since that run. I swapped in the Ablative Hazard Shield and I got more damage because the 2-piece set works out to be a 25% reduction in weapon cost, which matters more for cannons and beams, I think, because they can't overcap as well and refill. It sacrificed the flash heal, I guess, but I think it was worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I would actually honestly get rid of the sustained radiant field console because that's one of those things that's not really of a whole lot of worth. You might try something along the lines that, if I remember right, that biomolecular disruptor turret has a universal console that can go along with it, if I remember right.
Yeah, the whatever it's called. Yeah, there's hydrodynamics compensator, I think. There's that. I think that's part of that set, which would be that gives me a little bitty boost to disruptor damage, but it's pretty small. I was thinking about putting binaural infusion circuits right there because I do have that at 14 epic.
Yep. Yeah, so you might try that console because if I remember right, that gives a good boost to the biomolecular turret as well. So that, and I think it also has a disruptor boost that it does, if I remember right.
The 2-piece set bonus on that is category 2 7.5% disruptor buff.
Yeah.
Or disruptor and phaser, actually.
Yeah, disruptor and phaser, but.
And it increases the proc rate from 2.5% to 4.5% on the biomolecular weapons. And I want to say it maybe it buffs like photon damage or radiation damage a little bit, but not very much.
The TAC console does radiation damage. I know that.
That's probably what I'm thinking of because I have in the past run the turret with that TAC console because I was also running the gravimetric photon and the Dyson console that goes with that. So I figured the buff to photon damage would be nice, and that would all it cost me really was the little bit of crit chance, which as a Romulan it's a much smaller hit than it might be otherwise.
Yep. So one thing that you might try, because someone else in the Twitch channels also notices that your power levels went up and down a lot. So you might try using some batteries to help out with that. I've actually switched away from using a weapons and aux battery to the new energy amplifier, simply because of the fact that I like that a lot better.
Yeah, I don't remember what I'm carrying now. I think I'm not carrying aux batteries anymore. I don't remember what I put in that device slot. I've also, since that run, I've gotten Supremacy, which helps a huge amount.
Yes, that does. I was going to say that if you can get that, that was going to be one of the things I was going to recommend. So if you got that, that's even better. Um, in between that and um, delete, you got more than enough power coming in. So
Yeah, since getting Supremacy, everything seems to stay maxed or close to.
switch over to your traits real quick. I'm kind of curious to see what you got. Temporal Insight, Emergency Weapon Cycle. Okay, that's what I was wondering if you had that. And you got Supremacy in there with all hands on deck. So with it, the Emergency Weapon Cycle, I would highly recommend throwing in 2 emergency power to weapons skills, so that you can get that going off, and that'll help out your damage and everything as well.
Well, but I have the damage control engineers. I think that gives me really close to 100% uptime if I'm religious about actually hitting both of my EPT skills.
Yeah, that could help out too. So it's one of the things you kind of got to switch things off and figure out what's going to work best with your setup here.
Yeah, I definitely need to kind of explore some other options. I've kind of been married to the Drake setup for a while. I think I might need to look at some other options.
Yes, as far as the disruptive proc potentiality, it's not any better on cannons than it does on beams. It's the same on that. Question from the Twitch stream here. So
Yeah, there aren't that many per shot procs. I think the Alachi Disruptor and a couple others may be.
yeah.
I have a set of Alachi weapons that I might pull back out and play with.
So on your science embassy consoles, are you running plus threat or negative threat?
In that run, I was running negative threat. Most of the time I run negative threat, but I do periodically swap in plus threat consoles if I feel like I'm going to need to.
Well, I would, especially if you're trying to be the tank of the runs and whatnot, I would definitely get in the plus threat ones, especially considering you have max ship threat control.
Yeah, they're just something I swap in on kind of on an as-needed basis. Most of the time, if I'm running with Reddit, I often wind up running with people that are so much better at tanking anyway that the plus threat consoles there's really no point. But when I'm running with my fleet mates, I always swap in the plus threat consoles.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, the skills are pretty solid. I don't see any issues on those. Honestly, I think they're about where you need them to be. Intel and pilot spec trees, which for what you should be running.
I was actually thinking about speccing out of part gens and putting those points into grav gens just to increase the pull radius on the grav well, because I don't think its damage is all that significant since since I only have a few points in part gens anyway, and
yeah.
I mainly want it for control.
Well, here's a couple of other options that you can have. Is you can probably get away with dropping the shield emitters in the power insulators, and take those points and drop them into the grav and particle generators and take them up to about 6 probably.
Okay.
In fact, let me see real quick right here. Yeah, you can get both up to 6 easily. Do you run a lot of batteries or no?
No, I mean I used to carry a stack of aux batteries around to juice right before popping grav well or something like that.
Okay.
And with their cooldown having been recently reduced, I may go back to using the large aux batteries or something, because I have been relying on OSS and GravWell more or less syncing up. But with AHOD, the cooldown actually comes down pretty fast on GravWell, and with the faster battery cooldowns now, that might be more viable.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that you could do is you can drop the Starship emitters completely, drop the power insulators, and you can actually get your Starship graviton generators up to 7, with the particle generators up to 6, in the Starship Shield systems up to 7, and that would increase the amount of damage that your Grav Wells does as well in the pole that they have.
Okay.
So that would do pretty well there. And another thing that you might do that might be a little bit better is dropping the Singularity Specialist. Actually, you don't get the Astrophysicist. Have you got the level 15 Science R&D yet?
Yeah, I have all the schools at 15 on this tune.
I would drop that in, and that'll get your all your gravity wells up a little bit more with the damage that they can do as well.
Okay. Now, well, here's a question then, because I do have one of the exotic particle field exciters with the flow modifier.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be worthwhile to swap that in and place one of the embassy consoles to buff particle gems without sacrificing the power from Leech?
You could. Definitely could without too much hassle. I mean, on your build, I mean, you got a couple different ways you can look at it. You could use that instead, because you only got like 2 science consoles anyways. So you're talking like a plus 160 total threat as a whole, if I remember it. So I think it's like a 85 that it gives you. So you can drop one or both of them and still not have it hurt you too much, because most people, as it is already running major negative threat as much as they can to try and get away from all that. So overall, I mean, I think a lot of it, what you got going on here is just right. Point blank, so you're making up for some of the loss of the damage drop off with point blank, so that's one of the things to keep in mind there. It definitely is one of those things, as you get closer, it's going to get a little bit more, and you'll gain the damage from the drop off as well as from point blank. So you got 2 of the con officers for the recharge time for attack patterns in there. That's good.
Yeah, luckily I bought it before they were 9 figures a piece.
Yes.
And I do swap out the development lab scientists. Those aren't always there. I've been running with just one because all hands on deck reduces that cooldown. I also will swap in I have the debuff cleanse warp core engineer in sometimes, and once in a while I'll swap out both and throw the debuff cleanse engineer and throw in what do you call him? The guy that generates shield power when you use energy weapons.
You know, one of the things that you might try doing, since you're running a lot of threat, trying to take all the threat, is you might try getting a hold of the Delta Prime skill. It is quite expensive right now, even still. I think it's still in the 40k plus, or 40 million plus, I should say. But Delta Prime would give you a lot of damage, and if you especially can keep the threat, will be a great benefit for yourself. And overall, you just have to change your attack patterns over to the Delta pattern.
Right, and I have in the past I have swapped out Omega for CSV3 to make room for Delta 1 down at the bottom. And if I do that, I can drop 1 con officer and pick up instead the Jemadar security officer that boosts threat with Delta.
Yep. So, I mean, overall, I mean, your biggest thing that you probably got going on is the people you're running with. You run a better group of people, you'll probably get better runs as a result of that. You might also look at switching out the 2 dual cannons for dual heavy cannons.
Yeah, I have a set of heavy cannons right there. I've been meaning to do a lot more testing on that because the math suggests that the dual cannons should be a little bit better than dual heavies, but I haven't tested that enough, and I don't know if anybody's actually run really comprehensive testing on that. I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I don't think any deep testing has been done on that as a whole. It's one of those things that kind of see what's happening, what's going on, um, and what the difference between the two are. But I think overall, it's just a matter of hitting those spots right on everything. I mean, you got to be dead perfect on your piloting to make sure that you're getting the right spots and that you're able to get close enough and then turn fast enough, because the Morrigu is not exactly the swiftest ship in the fleet. So
It's not. I mean, it really is. It's a lot faster than most cruisers, but it's not quite fast enough to make cannons easygoing.
no, it definitely not. If you had something like one of the pilot ships or some other ship that has quick turning, then it would be a lot better situation for you. But you know, you're not flying the ship because of its speed. You're flying the ship because you like it.
Right. I mean, I fell in love with that design when I saw it on Nemesis, so I've stuck with it ever since.
Yeah, yep. So overall, I mean, I can't think of anything else that would help out. I mean, there's a couple of things, and I'll make the additions, and then I'll include it into the link, and I'll send it to you later on. And you're a science career on this, correct?
Right, because this is the first Romulan I rolled, and this is the first character that I've actually developed fully into in-game content and everything. Like, I've maxed out all the reps, and I've gotten all this R&D stuff to 15, all that stuff. It just became my main character. And in retrospect, I kind of wish I had actually rolled an engineer instead, because I feel like the better power management and the miracle worker makes it just so much easier.
Yeah, for a tank, it definitely would be for those cases. And you might try, well, I'll do a little playing around, see what I can come up with for it. But I think overall, I mean, you got a pretty good setup as it is. Like I said, using the particle manipulator will help out with your damage increase for the exotic stuff that you're using. And then also throwing into a combination of making sure that you're using the emergency power to weapons on a regular basis. That will make sure that you're getting more damage from that way.
Right, making sure I'm a little more religious about using my 2 emergency powers to keep those both active. And that's something I may need to go back and look at my keybinds again for that.
Yeah, that'd be one of the things I definitely look at. I mean, for myself, I tend to actually try and keep my emergency power weapons on a cycle, but I also will click them if I don't see them getting clicked when I want them to.
Right. I mean, for a long time, I had my emergency powers both on a single key that I was constantly kind of periodically tapping. I've moved away from that and have been running them individually, and what that's led to is me not reliably activating both of them, keeping them both active.
Yep, definitely. So, do you have any other questions?
Not really. I'm really glad I got the chance to come on the show, and I'm glad I got the chance to pick your brain about this.
And not a problem. Glad you were able to join us. Glad you submitted. Definitely look forward to it. Like I said, I'll do some tweaking after the show here to see what else I can do to make your build a little bit better. Like, I think the biggest thing is going to be probably a set of dual heavy cannons, because I know they do a lot more damage overall. And then a couple other minor tweaks will make it a little bit better. But you're not far. You're not far from it. So,
right. I mean, I figured that the equipment itself was all pretty much in order. More, this and that can make it a little bit better. I know it's mostly my flying has been holding me back.
Yep, definitely. It definitely is your flying, and I think part of that is because of the cannon effect that you have.
With that and a ship that it just really doesn't turn quite as fast as I'd like it to.
Yeah, some of the things you can try doing if you need to turn more is you can try dropping like the RCS console, and that would probably be a good spot to replace the Radeon field with, and that because that'll give you a good boost to the turn rate.
I've thought about picking up tachyokinetic converter to put in that slot actually, because I think that would be a buff to turn rate and crit chance and severity, wouldn't it?
It is. for Ramlin, I don't know if you necessarily need it, to be honest.
That's probably true. The turn rate is probably more valuable.
Yeah, the turn rate is more valuable, and you get a lot more turn from that. And then you can get one of the mods with it that's a potential to get is a part gen mod, so you can add some additional part gens to your build.
Well, that would be good.
So that's something to think of, and there might even be a grab gen, but I haven't seen one yet, so I can't say that there is or isn't on that. I know there's part gens because I have one.
Okay, well, that's something I'll keep an eye out for.
So that'd be something to use, and then it's got some healing if I remember right on that as well.
Right.
So that's something to look at and add into the build. That would probably help you out as well in that case. So if there's nothing else, I'll let you go here, and we'll go into some other things. It looks like some people want some builds reviewed. You're welcome to stick on if you want. Otherwise, I'll let you go, and we'll call it the end of the pilot review show itself.
Well, I think I'll get out of here. I really appreciate your time.
Not a problem. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.